The swarm had spread through the entire nebula, converting all materials in it into new nodes. Its spectra was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. No wonder the Astrogation Society had uttered a "that's strange" and notified the Navy. Preliminary analysis had calculated that the conversion process had taken over 1 billion years, which was a good thing, as all scouting missions had shown its growth to have ended at the outskirts of the nebula. There were no indication that any neighboring systems had been or were in the process of being converted. Orders from Tau Ceti Central had been clear on that. Analyze the phenomenon, assess its threat matrix, and, if required, contain or destroy. Basic catch-or-kill protocols. They had even authorized some extremely bleeding-edge hardware under the Canada Protocol. Admiral Pierce didn't know what was more scary. A multi-light-year artificial swarm that seemed to be operating under set constraints, or that there was a Black Ops department so secret and advanced that they just shrugged and offered to destroy it. The only thing they knew about their special escort was that nothing they had could even scan their hull, even though the ship looked like a standard Kennedy-class frigate. Luckily, the swarm seemed to be in a dormant or housekeeping state. Still, he had nightmares about single swarm units slowly drifting through interstellar space and entering the core systems with no warning. Scans had shown no such instances. It had taken a month, but there was nothing bigger than a ball bearing that had been picked up for a light hour out. The nebula had a set boundary. Nothing moved out further from it, and anything drifting in seemed to eventually make contact with a swarm unit that promptly switched over to a resource utilization mode. It was all very slow, and deep scans had shown that there was a slow process of older units being broken down, and their material used to construct new units. An accelerated simulation had shown a mesmerizing churn of units connecting with each other, regenerating, slowly moving through the nebula in waves, rebuilding and repairing itself for millions of years. The science team had muttered something about transcription errors and von Neumann cascades, but they were always spouting off. What mattered was that all findings had shown that the swarm was a stable, self-repairing system that had contained itself in this one particular nebula. As for why, that they could not answer. What was even stranger was that all probes and even scouting missions into the nebula was ignored. Either the swarm was much slower to respond than expected, or even more worrying, it had identified the ships and classified them as something other than a resource. One of the scouts had even gone so far as to pull a unit into its science bay, under the watchful eye of the Special Escort. One thing Admiralty had confided in private to Pierce was that his fleet and the Special Escort would also be destroyed if they had to enact the Canada Protocol, which made sense in a chilling sort of way. There was a knock on the door. "Enter." Madame Petite, head of the research detachment, marched in, extremely excited. Trailing behind her was the head of the artifact inspection team, and a very sheepish young researcher he had never met. "And to what do I owe this honor, madame? The next briefing is only at 1600 hours. She was technically French royalty, and had a knighthood to go with numerous doctorates. But to save everyone time and hammer home that she is superior in all aspects, she preferred to be called madame. A pain in the ass, but if it works, it works. "There has been an incident, and a major breakthrough. I'm sorry, Admiral, but I'm not sure how to describe this." The head of the inspection team opened his mouth, then thought about it and pushed the researcher forward. "I think it would be simpler to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak." Hi." The researcher, a young man with messed hair and stains on his uniform, looked around sheepishly. Pierce, a veteran of raising 3 teenagers, could see what was happening. "Okay, these two seem to have no idea what to tell me, which tells me it has happened fairly recently, and more importantly that you are involved. Deep breath, and tell me in small words, what did you do?"
"Well, sir,
We were busy analysing the clutch when I noticed some short-range frequencies that were active from what looked like a phased array transmitter.
The clutch?
The swarm unit, sir. It looks a bit like some electronics that were just clumped together for a quick build. Just alien.
Okay, and?
I started tracing it, and the patterns looked a lot like a type of communications protocol. So I reverse engineered it and discovered it was sending a handshake indicator.
Small words, please. Explain handshake indicator. What is your name?
Michael, sir. Basically, it was waiting for a signal back to connect and start receiving and transmitting instructions. The head of the inspection team raised his hand. Baxter here, sir. He was only supposed to monitor the signals and report on them.
Pierce stopped him. Let him talk, please.
Michael swallowed. Well, sir, the protocols were quite straightforward. It was a case of form meets function. It didn't take too long to replicate a response, and once a port was opened, to start a session on it.
A session? You started communicating with it?
Well, sir, we have over 300 years of computer engineering records, as well as other samples from the aliens we've contacted. I was able to access its operating system. Extrapolating from there was surprisingly easy.
So you communicated with the unit?
Pierce felt the hair on his neck raise. He could almost see the Canada Protocol frigate monitoring this. At first I thought so, sir, but it seems they use some type of sub-quantum communication. I could scan all the nodes from here and access their telemetry and even ping the butler in real time. The Smedley Butler, a marine carrier, was 5 light-years away, on the other side of the nebula. Even using FTL comms would take a message over 2 hours to reach them. Almost as if on cue, his intercom rang. Priority message from the Butler, sir. There has been activity in the swarm. The node closest to the ship has transmitted a message in clear text over a radio frequency.
What was the message?
Sir, it said, "Hello, world." Madame Petite put her head in her hands. Benson looked like he was going to throw up. Michael looked excited. It was so easy, sir. I didn't think I could reverse engineer their protocols so fast. It was almost like they didn't have any safeguards.
Or that they wanted it to be easy. Your equipment, was it secured?
Obviously, sir. I followed all first contact protocols, as well as every single intrusion check and safeguard I could think of.
And what happened next?
Well, sir, it seems that the nose and all the ones it connects to have housekeeping routines that take up only about 10% of its processing power. The rest seem to be running various emulations and, if I could guess, virtual environments. I was in deeper than I expected, but didn't want to interfere with those. So I, decided to see if I could run some of my own emulations.
Pierce had a feeling he knew where this was going. You decided to run the Doom test.
Oh, you've heard of that, sir? Yes. It is a very popular and powerful method to test compatibility and processing power in an unfamiliar system.
No need to tell me. My brother-in-law is a xenobiologist. One of his team once ran Doom on a continent-wide mycelium network on Sargassus V. It took 3 months, but it worked.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, sir, but that is cool. So anyway, I took a bit of trial and error, but I was able to run an emulator using some processing power on the node, and that's when it happened. He could see Madame Petite looking pale.
What happened, son? Spit it out.
I was able to get it running and none of the logs showed any issues, so I started a game to check for discrepancies. And it was my lunch break.
And?
I didn't notice it at first, but a second player entered the game.
He could really feel that frigate monitoring the conversation now. A second player? Someone else in your lab?
No, sir. Everything was air-gapped and contained. It was from the swarm. We played about 4 games, then another player joined and messaged me.
It messaged you?
Yes, sir. Doom has an in-player messaging system. It sent me a message.
Oh shit.
Pierce kept his expression neutral and calm.
What was the message?
Cool game. Can we play too?